threshold from hunter-gatherer to the civilized individual or individuals that we've become today, we didn't bargain for the kinds of changes that we were going to face. We changed our whole makeup, mentally, emotionally, socially. We changed it completely, and we became very, very different in the way we related to one another and in the way we related to the rest of the world. This means we were forced to adopt different values, different skills in communication, all of which carried repercussions for social and family life. Suddenly we knew what it meant to be alone, what it meant to be an individual. We could say we suddenly knew the cost of being an individual. It seems that we tend to invent the way we need to be in order to function in this civilized world. We set this gauge to accommodate a way of thinking and behaving and believing that never really existed. It's considered that most people are able to manage, and therefore they function either on that line or above that line. It's a line of success, it's a line of happiness, it's a line of I'm doing okay. What is this gauge? What is this benchmark? What is this target we are trying to rise up to? It's as if we're constantly facing an audience that's either approving or disapproving of what we do. But it's an imaginary audience, something we feel we have to be answerable to. Our technological age has lured us into being liked and loved at all costs. It's a matter of coming up to scratch and trying to be the best we can be. The best of what? How? Why? Where? I ask all these questions, and I think you should too. Perhaps you do, and perhaps that's why you come back frequently to watch these videos where I'm voicing something that isn't always voiced. The civilized way of thinking, to my mind, has individualized us so much that it's like a runaway train now. It's unstoppable. Instead of ditching the idea of individualism, which we might have done had the timeline gone a little bit differently, and had we not become so obsessed with progress and development, we are now becoming so individualized that it is actually crushing us. We have to do everything as an individual. And most individuals are not coping at all. Most individuals are holding up a flare and sending out an SOS. Help me, I can't cope in this society. We are a community of individuals when we form communities, unless we resort back to a way of thinking that is community-based. To give an example of what I mean about this, if you are living daily, hourly, in a community that has community-based values, then you will be coming from that place, from that situation when you are dealing with aspects of life. So to become an individual would feel alien, and it's only likely that you would become an individual if you were ostracized, if you were sent packing out of the tribe, and that would freak you out enormously because it means you would have done something very wrong. We seem to have a different definition of ostracism today, tending to associate it with social and racial exclusion. But this isn't the way it was seen in earlier times. A narcissistic attitude would have been very noticeable in earlier tribal communities, and there needed to be something aggressive, vain, disharmonious, or plainly odd or somewhat disturbing about you to qualify for being cast out. As surprising as it may sound, constantly admiring yourself may just have earned you a place on the road to nowhere. In fact, admiring yourself in the way we do today wouldn't have been so acceptable even just a few years ago. And for some reason it seems to have become acceptable today to entertain narcissistic individuals in our current society, as if it is politically correct to do so. This means, sadly, that vanity and self-admiration are in, clearly devastating for those of us who don't buy it. And behind this is the feeling that we all want to be bigger than we really are. We're all encouraged to dream big, which I think puts a lot of pressure on us, the downside of individualism. The trouble is, once you become an individual, you learn to be permanently ostracized. We end up self-ostracized or voluntarily ostracizing ourselves because there's simply nothing else we can do. We are singular, we are solitary, we are alone. So to go into a community that has the foundation of community-based values means that we find it quite hard to move in line with those values because we do not live with them daily, hourly. We are not schooled with a community mind. I say it hurts to be an individual, and that is what the civilized mind creates. It hurts because when we're ostracized or excluded from a group, an unnatural social situation occurs, which wouldn't have existed in earlier times, nor even just so long ago. We are natural herd animals as a species, with a social structure similar to other herd animals, and although ostracism can be associated with ancient Greece, it is a far older prehistoric law governing all herd creatures, from wolves to chimpanzees, horses. An individual who misbehaves and dominates will be excluded from the herd so as to preserve the well-being of the herd. Herd life or community life must be preserved at all costs, way above any individual who may serve to disrupt the herd or the community. It hurts because no matter what you do, you've got this shadow following you all the time, telling you that you've got to make it in something. You've got to be liked. You've got to be loved. You've got to be successful. And above all, you've got to aim to be happy. And while we like to achieve all these things, it doesn't always work that we do. Now, this is where we meet the word narcissism. Now, there's two ways of seeing narcissism. We can see it in a healthy way, where we're getting out of bed in the morning and saying, right, I'm going to do something. I'm not going to sit on my backside. I'm going to get up and do something that I can achieve. If we have to face people, groups of people, as I'm doing much of the time, then that is healthy narcissism. because it means that I am stepping out and daring to say something and being bold enough to put myself in the limelight to say it. The other form of narcissism is running with that. It means pulling strings, manipulating, controlling others for the sake of it. So when I say, does civilization breed narcissism? Yes, it does. Technology gives us a good example of this, because technology is designed for individuals. And it appeals to individuals because it has to appeal to the me factor, which it couldn't otherwise do if we existed in tribal-based communities. Communities where the foundation rests within the people as a collective. Even the Romans might have found it a tad difficult to individualize themselves enough to become personally tied to a device in the way we are. Only a civilization can breed narcissism, because only a civilization can breed an individual. We opened the door to the idea of civilization a very long time ago, thousands of years ago to be precise. And with that, we open the door to the idea of the individual, and thus to the idea of narcissism. Narcissism, you could say it's almost become a disease when it's in its negative state. And it's like some huge machine that's rolling along and not caring about what it does. A great shadow, a great ugly shadow, presides over our world today, masquerading as the beautiful Narcissus from Greek mythology, obsessed with his own selfie. That's how we could see it today. And if the Greeks got anything right, that myth explains an awful lot about what civilization can instill in us. It's only individualism that will allow this to happen. Individualism clouds our communal judgment. It stops us from thinking in a communal way. So it stops us from thinking of the whole. We haven't got a whole being, a whole spirit that is part of the makeup of what we are. We haven't really got that. We only have a glimmer of it all the time. And that glimmer is like lighting a match, and it's flickering, and in the end it has to burn out. It can't sustain itself. Narcissism will not sustain any of us. It will kill us in the end. Because on a societal level, it's all about consumerism. It's all about the individual and how much the individual can be pleasured and can enjoy themselves, because that's the way we seem to see life in a civilized society. The narcissistic attitude means we start gobbling everything up: food, money, each other, and perhaps even ourselves. Isn't this woman saying, "Gobble me up"? I'd want to gobble me up. Otherwise I feel crushed. Otherwise I am nothing. Otherwise I am a nobody. And that's because I'm an individual. We are encouraged to be aggressive if we want to achieve something. We're encouraged to just go for it, no matter what. This idea of competitiveness. You've got to compete with everyone. You've got to elbow them out the way. And in some cases, that's considered to be an asset. If you practice negative narcissism, you are not going to be a very, very healthy person at all. You're going to be very miserable deep inside. It isn't very comfortable, the way we're having to live with all this. But narcissism is on the rise, and civilizations breed narcissism because they breed individual power. You can go all the way back to ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, Sumer, everywhere, and you will find the same thing. And what do you know? Narcissism even creeps into neo-shamanism. Narcissists assume the shaman role. That does happen in the New Age industry. I've met plenty of them, believe me. They're not running on anything that is, if you like, a good energy, if you want to use a New Age term. Civilization gets into our soul, the civilized mindset, as opposed to the primary organic mindset. The primary organic way of thinking is the way of thinking. It's equivalent to the root of a tree, to a seed, to something that is the organic beginning. Something that represents life as it needs to be. Civilization is obviously here to stay. And while a lot of us don't like it and we feel like running off back to the woods again and living there and making a tree house and staying there forever, we are not going to get rid of it anytime soon, and we are not going to eradicate narcissism anytime soon. I don't hold out much hope in the sense that society can survive. Society cannot survive where the resources are being used up, and society certainly cannot survive negative narcissism. It's narcissism that uses up the resources. And once you get used to doing that, you think it's normal. It becomes the norm. And you couldn't do that in a primary organic tribe. You couldn't do that. You'd be ostracized straight away because you would have the initiations and the rituals and all the things that help you to become a mature being worthy of living in this natural world. If we are living in a structured primary organic tribe, it won't even enter our heads to become narcissistic. So I would urge you, if you want to have hope, if you want to feel you're doing something good in this world, and you're holding up that flare, saying, help me, because I know what it is to have a little bit of normality about me, start to learn to think in an organic way. See healthy narcissism for what it is. See the herd, the pack, the community for what they are. See negative narcissism for what it is. And by doing this, you'll be able to hold up a hand and say no. No to negative narcissism, and you'll be able to welcome healthy narcissism just by seeing each one exactly as it is, and knowing the way life is working today is part of the overall healing process, and that will help you connect to an ancient way far more than anything else. Think simply. Sit with yourself. Think simply. Be as a tree is. Just be. And please, please do not conform to what the New Age is telling you to be. It's full to the gills with individual negative narcissism. Remember that the New Age industry is a product of civilization and therefore individualism as much as anything else is. My advice would always be to warn you against getting much too involved with the New Age industry. Try to avoid it, or at least lessen your involvement with it if you possibly can. Please give some thought to all of this. don't take the civilized world seriously if you can help it. You're here, so just do what you have to do and no more. That's what I do. And then you can go into your own personal organic world as an individual. That's all you can do. Build communities where you can. Communities who can think this way. I'm hoping to do some more workshops to discuss these things more, and might just help a few of us to cope more with what's going on in this world. But anyway, I'll leave you with that, and hopefully you can think a little constructively about it and come to some of your own conclusions. Make some comments if you wish. Talk to me. I like that. Otherwise, I'm just this lone voice talking on my own to this camera in this room with just Larry over there beside me. He's primary organic, if anyone is. Anyway, take care. I'll talk again soon.